Welcome back, everybody. Let's start the next keynote session now. Keynote number 4. And this is given by Trude Sundset, which is CEO of Gassnova, which is a state facility to make CCS happen in Norway. Her keynote title is CCS in Norway, Pushing Ahead. As I said, Trude is CEO of Gassnova. She has 30 years of business experience, has worked in Statoil, holds a Master of Technology from this university. And I'm really eager to hear about the operational and strategic outlook for CCS from a Gassnova perspective. So without further ado, please, Trude, enter the stage and let's give her a big hand.
So, can you hear me now? Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you some words on the current CCS activities in Norway. Recently, President Trump announced that the US would pull out of the Paris Agreement. I believe many of you were just as disappointed as I was about this news. However, it's not obvious that it is only negative for the climate and for CCS. Because last week, the US Secretary for Energy, Rick Perry, was in China, and there he stated that CCS is an important solution to invest in. In addition, world leaders have stood up and are showing stronger commitment to the Paris Agreement as a reaction to the US withdrawal from it. Also, business leaders have accepted the challenge to lead the move to reach the Paris goals. They stated that if the US government will not lead, the industry will. And I find that very inspiring. And all these signals put together was something somewhat surprising, but indeed encouraging. Because in order to reach, for CCS to succeed, we need industries to come together with governments and step up the effort. And that is exactly what Norway is trying to do, push ahead with CCS, because CCS has to happen if we are to save the world's climate. I have often observed that we are competing instead of working together to fight climate change. For many people, it seems as though the only solution is renewables. Any other solution appears to not be green enough and therefore does not have a future. This became very clear to me when I attended the Bloomberg New Energy Global Summit in New York in April. At the summit, which was very focused on renewables, Michael Bloomberg was asked about his opinions on CCS. And his answer was, CCS is total bullshit. I believe the reason why he said that is because he sees CCS only as a solution to clean up coal. And that is by many regarded as unacceptable. But I feel really concerned about this competition, because I believe that climate change is such a big challenge that we cannot argue against different solutions and keep competing. Saving the climate is not about participating in a short-term competition for a championship. We're in it for the long haul. I believe it's better to look at this as a relay race, where together we run the race to reach the Paris goal and the 2-degree target. Because we're going to need all the clean technologies that we can develop. In order to succeed, we believe that we have to take a holistic approach. And I often like to illustrate Gassnova's activities as a triangle. Research, demonstration, and full-scale implementation need to work hand in hand in order to ensure that CCS is a relevant and cost-effective technology for climate mitigating. And all these activities are actually interdependent of one another, and together increase the value of each other. We've already seen the important work done through the Climate Research Program, and the tests at TCM have contributed significantly to how Norway now is ready to move forward with our full-scale project. Going forward, TCM and Climate will play an important role in furthering innovation, improving technologies and solutions, and help fund development of new technologies. And we're so fortunate in Gassnova that we're actually set up to orchestrate all of this and make it happen. Climate is the Norwegian CCS research program and has been ongoing for 12 years, have supported more than 300 projects throughout the whole CCS value chain. And we see Climate as a national CCS effort, a key instrument, but it's also a key instrument beyond just funding the projects. Climate's purpose is also to help create a network for players that accumulate and spread the expertise and strengthen CCS cooperation also internationally. Earlier this year, Climate released a new program plan to refocus and strengthen the strategy. The program has therefore identified 3 focus areas: early full-scale CCS value chain in Europe, large-scale storage of CO2 on the Norwegian continental shelf, and future cost-effective solutions for CCS. We're always looking for new projects, so if you have any project that you want to share with us or an idea, please do not hesitate to contact us during the conference or after. Demonstration is an essential part to ensure that we can scale to an industrial size. The CO2 Technology Center at Mongstad, that we for short call TCM, is the world's largest and most flexible test facility for CO2 capture. And it has now been in operation for 5 years, on August 17th. We're also very pleased that we have a very close cooperation with SINTEF on TCM. And this spring, we have several great news from TCM. Gassnova has agreed with Statoil and Shell to continue operations for at least 3 more years at TCM. But that's not all. We've also signed an MOU with Total, as they plan to join the partnership. And we would welcome more partners as well in the future. So far, 5 different technologies have been tested at TCM. And currently, we're about to start the 3rd of the owner's own campaigns, where we use the non-proprietary MEA Amin. The reason why we do these, the owners do these test campaigns, is that by these campaigns we can share the results openly. We have developed and expanded these test campaigns, and the recent one will be a very broad collaboration between TCM partners, other industries, universities, and SINTEF and other research institutions. This is a very good example on how TCM is an arena for researchers, technology developers, and end users to come together to share new and important knowledge on CO2 capture. And at TCM, we are experiencing more of a global demand, and TCM has also recently released a new strategy with the intention of expanding its role as a global competence center. The plan is to offer this experience more broadly through collaboration agreements with relevant companies and institutions in Norway as well as abroad. And we have already seen fruits of this new strategy, because last week TCM signed a formal collaboration agreement with the Guangdong CCUS demonstration project in China. And I must underline, the Chinese interest in CCS now is really great news for the CCS community. I'm sure you're all very interested in our full-scale project, so I'll now spend some time talking about that. The heart of the Norwegian government ambitious goals is the development of this full value chain on CCS in Norway by 2022. And this shows you where we are now and where we're planning to go. We're very pleased that we have still 3 industry players with us on the capture side: Trude, Norcem, and Yara, all signed contracts for study contracts for concept and feed phase in April. Depending on the results from these studies and the amount of funding that we will receive from the government, we will later find out if we will take 1, 2, or all 3 of these projects to the investment decision plan for the spring of 2019. Gassco is responsible for the ship transportation and have selected the Larvik Shipping and Brevik Engineering to conduct conceptual studies on ship transportation. And as Irene Romelov from Statoil mentioned, we are currently in the process of selecting the company that will conduct the next phase of developing the storage part of this value chain. The winner of the concept and feed study for storage will be announced very soon. This timeline is very ambitious, and as I've said, the plan is to make the investment decision for the whole value chain in 2019 in order to be in operation by 2022. As I've already mentioned, we have these 3 completely different industries that are engaged in and dedicated to study capture on their existing plants. And I believe this is really key for our success, to have these industries in there and their real interest in doing the work. You cannot just politically decide to design industry projects. You need them to be in it fully. And we had a feasibility study for the full-scale value chain finished in July 2016, and it concluded that it's technically feasible to implement CO2 capture plant at Norcem cement factory in Brevik, at Yara's ammonium plant in Porsgrunn, and at Klemetsrud waste-to-energy plant in Oslo. And what's interesting, if you compare with using CCS for power production, these industries have virtually no other alternative to come even further down on reducing emissions, as CO2 is generated in the chemical processes. You cannot simply switch to renewable energy. It's not possible. But these industries see that using CCS, they will ensure the value creation for the future and save their industry liability for the future, where in the future we believe that there will be limitations on CO2 that can be released. If we're able to move ahead with all of these, this will create vast learnings, since each of them represent global industries, and the deployment potential therefore is huge. To provide flexibility to the CCS value chain in Norway, the plan is to develop transportation by ship from these multiple CO2 sources to an intermediate storage onshore on the west coast of Norway, with a pipeline to a geologic formation offshore that is called Smeaheia. Smeaheia is a site 50 kilometers off the coast of western Norway, and it has a very large storage potential. The current capture project we're working on now will probably utilize less than 1% of this store. So in the future, as also Statoil mentioned, we believe that Smeaheia could become a CO2 storage hub for emissions from all of Europe. One of the unique things about our project is that we are in fact building an infrastructure for CCS. I sometimes like to talk about the CCS highway. And this also fits well with what Jared Daniels from Department of Energy talked about this morning. That is what you have to think. You have to think this way in order to succeed. And once this value chain is up and running, other CO2 emission sources can connect at a much lower cost. But also what's really important to be aware of is that the Norwegian state have told the industry emitters that their responsibility is simply to capture CO2 from their own facilities. And the state will take responsibility for the transportation and storage part of the value chain. The way I see it, setting up a full value chain on CCS is very important, but equal important, I think, in order to make it happen, is the split in responsibility between the state and the industry. I don't think that you've seen anything like this elsewhere in the world. As many of you know, I guess, the main challenge to realize CCS is that many decision makers question the return on investment of CCS. is developing a CCS full-scale facility worth the investment? Is there enough return to society? Why can't we just develop renewables and stop using oil and gas? But if you do the numbers, it's simply not possible in the time frame that we're talking about. In addition, we have all these large point sources as described by our industry in the full-scale project. These industries need CCS to reduce their emissions. So in fact, almost all agree that CCS is crucial in order to reach a Paris Agreement. And at the same time, it seems so difficult to get wide deployment of CCS. Why? Well, the reason is actually quite simple. It doesn't cost enough to emit CO2. We believe that in the future it will, but when and how soon will we see the cost of CO2 CCS technology come down? We do not know the answer to this yet, but someone has to go first and show that this can be done and that the prices can come down. And that's what Norway is trying to do. As also already mentioned by Egil Meisingset from the ministry this morning, the Norwegian goal is to contribute to develop CCS cost-effective technologies. But as he also said, it's not just about reducing CO2 emissions, because in Norway we simply don't have that much CO2 emitted to the atmosphere. It's a bit strange, I agree, but that's just the fact. So therefore it's equally important for us with our project to share the results with the rest of the world and inspire other countries to do the same that what Norway is planning to do. And Gassnova has been given the mandate by the Norwegian government to ensure Norwegian full-scale CCS project is realized and to show the value of this project. And therefore we have tied 4 goals to our project. First, to demonstrate that CCS is possible and safe to implement. Second, to reduce the cost and barriers of future CCS projects. Third, to provide guidance and solutions on regulatory and commercial issues. And fourth, facilitate new business opportunities through exploiting the established infrastructure. And I believe also the story from Statoil on the hydrogen potential future is a good example of that. How do we communicate CCS? How do we tell the story? And how do we inspire governments, industries, and individuals to take action? How do we take the complexity of CCS and simplify the story without losing its essence? I believe one of the main obstacles to communicate CCS is how we use acronyms. In doing so, we have created a tribal language that is a barrier to reach decision makers, media, and the public. When I was recently in the US, I had a meeting with the Global CCS Institute, and they told me that they had changed the way they talk about to decision makers in the US Congress. They now use carbon capture as the umbrella to explain storage and utilization, instead of talking about CCUS and CCS. I found this surprisingly simple, and I'm starting to wonder if we should do the same. It's something for all of you to talk about over dinner tonight. Because CCS isn't easy to communicate, particularly to the public in general. Renewable energy like solar is something a person can relate to. You can choose to buy a solar panel and put it on your house, or you can choose to buy an electric car. But CCS is more abstract and not something that an individual can make a decision on. So why should they care? CCS is not part of daily life and is not an easy technology to explain. But we must find a way to appeal to the world to make them see that CCS is a necessary technology to solve the world's climate issue. And it's important that you in the R&D community take this issue seriously. It's not sufficient to do good research. It has to be communicated as well. And I think we should start looking at ourselves as CCS ambassadors to tell the story and to take communications really seriously. We believe that creating this CCS value chain in Norway will change the way the world thinks of CCS and the role it can play to solve the climate challenge. But we need more keys to unlock the success of CCS. One of the keys is to change the culture from competition to cooperation. It's important that we are inclusive and welcome all technologies. Another thing I believe is key is that we can make CCS a bridge between renewables and fossil fuels. It's a bit dangerous to say this. This is something we don't say, but I think it's really important to start talking about it. And we're so fortunate we have these industry projects, so maybe also using those industry projects can help bridging between renewables and fossil fuels. As a direct follow-up of the Bloomberg Global Summit and my experience being there in April, Gassnova, we invited ourselves to go to Bloomberg in London and meet with editors and analysts there to talk about CCS and educate them. And actually, on Sunday, I'm going there. Monday, we have a meeting, so I'm really looking forward to that. Hopefully, what we will achieve with that meeting is to convince them that CCS is possible, it is necessary, and maybe one of the most important technologies in order to combat climate change. Together, I think we're going to make it happen. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Trude, for that thoughtful speech. Is there a question for Trude? I think we can allow one. Well, I've got one, you know. Do you think you'll get the money to push ahead?
Of course.
Of course, okay. That's clear. Okay, I think we'll just stop it there.
Thank you.
There you go, a token of appreciation. I know that you go hiking. We meet sometimes, you know. So.
Yeah, we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Trude. So,